Welcome to the podcast, Sam. Finally, we get you
Finally.
here.
Yeah,
It's been a
a while.
while. Yeah, I've been following the band obviously from day one. So yeah, buzzing. Obviously, you've got some exciting news today too.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where we'll start. Maybe you can tell us about the band story, how you met, how you formed the band.
Yeah. Today is release day of our new single Safe Bet. We recorded it at 6DB Studios in York with Dave Boothroyd. But yeah, I mean, our story wise, it's kind of unconventional. We started off, it started off as just Lewis originally, who's like the big ginger guy, if anyone has ever seen the band. And yeah, Lewis started doing tracks with Jeremy, and then when they started performing, I was like, "Yeah, I want to get on stage." And yeah, I just did. One day, he asked me to get up with him and just help him out with the show, and that's kind of how I came into it. And once we started getting support from BBC and stuff like that, we were like, "We're gonna need a band. It's not gonna work out as it is." So put a band together, and then yeah, slowly but surely, we've been kind of getting to the point we're at now. And yeah, it's all going well.
That's really cool. Have you become really close in the band in that
Yeah,
time?
I mean, me and Lewis, we've known each other since college. We did the same course when we were like 16. But everyone else, man, it feels like a little brotherhood. Like, we feel like we've known each other forever. And we've just got two new boys. And they've been in the band for like 2, 3 months. And it feels like literally they've been in it from the start. It's really cool, really good vibe.
Yeah. I imagine it's really bonding actually over the music stuff and in the process of writing songs. I don't know how you do that, but yeah, I think it's probably quite therapeutic just like sitting and writing and going through all that together.
I think it is for everyone else. I find
Oh,
writing really hard because
oh,
I've never like written a song properly in like my whole life. Um, I've tried in the past, and there's always like a block, like a self confidence block. That like, oh, this is embarrassing, this is cringe, and I guess it wasn't until recently I just kind of said like, fuck it, and just got past it and just wrote a song, and that's how I really started. Is Lewis sent me a beat what he liked and had written some lyrics, and it was during lockdown, the second one, and I was just like, I'm bored, I've got nothing else to do. I want to write a verse for that. And he was like, that's really cool. You should actually get on this track. And we just did it. But I find it really stressful. Like, I'm not, it takes me a long time to get to the final outcome of the song.
oh.
Uh, and it takes a lot of revisions and a lot of stress and sometimes a lot of arguments where I'm saying like, I want it like this, and everyone else is like, but it don't work like that. You're gonna have to change it, and it takes me a while. But I'm lucky that I've got other people in the band who've been doing it for years, and they can help me out where they can.
Uh-huh. I noticed that the songs have quite heavy themes, thinking
Mm.
about lyrics and stuff. So, yeah, mental health is in there, politics is in there, toxic relationships is in there. I think that's your newest one that
Yeah,
you've just released. Why is it important to write about stuff like this? Where does that come from?
I think when you struggle with things in the past, like mental health, or if you've been through tough challenges in life, it's hard to really write about anything else because it plays such a big, significant part in your life. We wrote Pity Party probably about a year ago, and that one is purely about like anxiety and depression. And it's a track, one of the ones that I found easier to write because I think when you're battling with stuff like that, I've been struggling with like anxiety and depression for best part of 10 years now, and it almost for a long time it almost becomes like part of your identity where you're kind of working out to get through it is accepting that you've got these issues. And then when you start to come out through the other side of it, you can kind of look back. And I think me and Lewis are at a point where we can both look back on our past traumas and issues and look at it a bit more objectively. And it's a really nice jumping off point for building that picture or writing that into a song.
Recycling your pain.
Mm.
Do you find yourself connecting to yourself more and to your fans more through the music?
I think other people do. I personally, it almost, once it's kind of out there in a track, it almost feels like, I guess, kind of like a therapy because it feels like you've kind of written it down on that page and you're on to the next one. You know, you can write 100 songs about the same topic, but they won't be very interesting. So if you kind of take like these little micro bits out of each song and then build like a narrative of that, then you can turn that page and it's done. So I don't think I connect to myself in the sense that I'm finding out something about myself, but I connect to myself in the sense that I'm able to like, I guess, turn a leaf on it.
Oh,
It almost
part of
becomes like
processing.
yeah, you almost tell this story so many times that it becomes a story, and you know, you're past it, you're over it. You kind of, you know, when you're singing the song, like when you're playing it on stage, you say it that many times that it is just like you're having a conversation at that point. And yeah, it's an interesting way to get through things, I guess.
Mm, mm. I mean, that's really vulnerable, isn't it? Putting like pity pie. I mean, pity pie is my favorite. I share that a lot too. How is that for you? Because that's quite vulnerable, isn't it, to share if that's a chapter of what's going on for you?
I think look, one thing with like having like anxiety and stuff like that is I think it's almost like a mirror or like a pane of glass that like getting through things like that, you can like break the glass and then glue it back together, but it's never going to be exactly the same. And you always have that anxiety with you, or at least I do. Um, so doing anything what's putting you in the public eye or in public thing, you always have like the barbs in your back, like trying to pull you back and be like, don't do this, don't do that. What if this happens? What if that happens? And I think it's a good way of kind of just getting through it and you know, accepting that, you know, X or Y or Z might happen, but if I don't put my music out there, if we don't go and do these shows, then I'm just going to be sat doing nothing in my bedroom and dreaming of what things could be like.
Mm, mm.
So
Yeah. Why do you think it's important to use your platform to talk about these topics outward as well, like beyond your own personal stuff?
I mean, I'm a big advocate of like talking about your feelings because that's what got me through my struggles. Um, and I think normalizing things is really important. I mean, we're only a small band, we've only got a small platform, but if we can use that platform to make just one person feel better about something, and I think that's really important because when I was struggling, I was listening to music and you know watching interviews and hearing people talk about things that I've gone through, and it just makes you feel not. It doesn't make you feel like a weirdo anymore. Um,
Mm.
you know, you've got all these people like seem to remember like at the time when I was really struggling, like Stormzy, who like is not like a big I'm not like a big Stormzy fan, but I remember him talking about stuff like that and being like, yeah, it's relatable and yeah, I'm not weird for feeling this way, and that's just kind of what we want to do, and yeah, I think yeah.
Mm. I love this for you guys. Um, yeah, you mentioned using music as a coping strategy. I use music as a coping strategy. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for music. It's pulled me out of many dark holes. What do you think is like your go-tos with that?
But listening
Hmm.
really depends. I think it really depends on what I'm feeling at the time. Um, you know, like a lot of like the emo bands, like you know, like the My Chemical Romance and stuff like that. Like sometimes it can just really like scratch an itch, and sometimes it does feel like it makes you feel worse because it's like, yeah, I'm realizing that I'm feeling all these feelings, but I think having anything that puts a magnifying glass up to your emotions and lets you look at it from like an objective view is always helpful. So yeah, a lot of the emo bands. Trying to think like anything what was popular like 15 years ago when I was growing up, and I was a teenager, like that sort of stuff is always really helpful. And then on the other side, there's like the empowering side of music. Almost like the music you listen to in the gym, what makes you feel like, yeah, I've
Yeah.
got this, I can go out, I feel strong, I feel pumped up. And I think
Mm.
they're kind of my two go-tos. I don't really have an in-between, like any in-between is just passive listening, which I'm enjoying. So,
Mm. Yeah. When does it come in?
um, more so the latter side of what I talked about, of when I feel like I need to get pumped up, when I feel like I need to kind of get myself out of a hole, like there'll be tracks that make me feel like that aggression or whatever, it might bring that fight out of me, which is exactly what I need at that point. Um, I don't know, like I'm very good at wallowing. I'm not so good at getting myself out. So like any like support rope, what I can take, I'll just use.
Oh, yeah. You're essentially emotionally regulated with your music.
To an extent, I wouldn't say music's like my biggest thing to get out of stuff. I really do feel like holistic therapy, talking, getting things off my chest. Like personally, I find that really, really helpful. Um, because like if you put it out there into the world and you're worrying about something stupid like the water's poisoned or something
Hmm.
like that, and you say out loud and you realize like once you've said it, like actually yeah, that's a bit irrational.
Hmm.
So I find that side of thing probably like personally my best way of feeling better about things.
Yeah, if you do need like that motivation, going back to that, do you have certain areas of music that you go to?
Yeah, weirdly, it's really cheesy, but like wrestling intros. I'm wearing a wrestling t-shirt right now, but
Uh-huh.
like there's something about it like feels like really like yeah, I'm John Cena now. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that, or like 80s like like metal montage music, or like the final countdown or something like that. Like I don't know. I'm a very visual thinker, so if I can put myself into a different pair of shoes through music and feel not like myself just for that moment, and I can get through, then I'm usually all right after that.
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, and yeah, if you think about the stuff that comes up when you are struggling and you put some of this music on, does it always work? Is it like a one-time thing? It always works. How do you know what to do?
I don't really. I do think you have to be in a place where you want to feel better for it to work. Um, I always like talk about like my mental health. Like for a long time, I feel like I didn't want to get better. So like I wanted to in the sense that like I was desperate to not feel like the way I was doing, but I wasn't willing to fight. I wasn't willing to like actually get myself out of the bed and get myself to the gym or do whatever it takes to get out of it. I was kind of happy in being like self-destructive in like my behaviors or my emotions and stuff. And yeah, I'm like head and shoulders better than I was like 10 years ago. Like 10 years ago, I was in like a really bad place. And now I understand myself better. And if I'm ever feeling like I don't want to get myself out of it, then I won't try and force myself to get through it. But when the time's right and I do feel like that, right, this is it, then I'll just put on some music and push through.
Hmm. That's really vulnerable, Share.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but everyone goes through stuff and it's normal. Like, and it doesn't matter what size of it is. My like there's people in my life who will say like, oh, I've got this thing going on, it's stupid and stuff like that. And I always say like, it might be stupid, but it's important to you, then it's important. Like there is always going to be someone who's having a worse time than you, so there's no point comparing yourself to other people.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I think just putting yourself out there in the world and talking about things openly is just if it helps me, it might help someone else.
Yeah. Do you have your spaces to talk now?
Yeah, I'm really close with like my mum, and I've got a lovely girlfriend who I can talk to, or even my mates. Um, I guess one really nice thing about this band is like we are all very, very open with each other, like almost too open sometimes. And we will always talk about how we're feeling. I think we've kind of created like a nice little community of lads who are willing to pick each other up. Um,
Uh,
and yeah, I think having a good support network is always really helpful. And I think when you do go through struggles in life, you do realise where your support network is. It's the one beauty you get out of the misery is the people who aren't there for you. You'll realise that like they're never going to be there for you, and you end up losing friendships, or people don't want to be around you because you become hard work, and that's absolutely fine and that's absolutely valid. But you realise the ones who are there for you and have been strong for you, they're the friends you can always turn to and always look towards.
Do you feel that you are understood in some of these circles and the people that you have around you and the life that you're creating for yourself amongst all of this and all of your struggles?
Yeah, um, my closest friends know more about me or what I've been through in the past than other people do. Um, and that's kind of more of like a choice, not so much because I'm afraid to be vulnerable about it, but more because, like, personally, I get sick of the sympathy or having to explain or having X or Y. And sometimes it's just like, just can't be bothered. So, like, like you've got your go-tos who you'll talk to about everything, and then you've got, and then if you say to your mates like, "Oh, I'm feeling bummed out about X or Y," then you've always got them which will support you. And I think it took me a long time to get that circle around me, but I feel like I'm at that point now.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, safe space is really vital in building yourself up and having that support. And there's a level of self-responsibility, isn't there, which you've kind of touched on already, pushing yourself through sometimes, but there is a level of support that we need. And I think a lot of the time it's easy to kind of bunker down and try and push through yourself, but we do need all of those things.
100%. The best thing I ever did, like, now I've been on sertraline for 10 years, um, and whether it's the right medication for me or not, I'm not really sure. But the best thing I ever did was like actual holistic therapy. I was in uni at Norwich at the time, and before you actually do it, like anything like that, you kind of assume it's going to be like it is in TV or film or whatever, where you go in and you lie on like a couch, and there's somebody going like, "Oh, tell me about your childhood and all this
How do
stuff."
you feel?
Yeah, and it's not like that. I've had like good therapists, I've had bad therapists, and when you get somebody who's really good at the job, it it really does feel like you've got somebody who's just kind of helping you up that ladder. They've got your hand as guiding you up there. They'll let you come to your own conclusions. They'll let you work things out about yourself, and they almost like lay all the puzzle pieces out on the table, and they say to you like, "You put it back together." Um,
Really good way to put it.
I remember just at the time. I don't know. Have you ever seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
No.
No. There's like a scene where Charlie, one of the characters, is like going crazy, is smoking a cigarette, is stringing like all these things like for a conspiracy theory together. Um, and like for a long time, I felt like that while doing the therapy because I was realizing that like the reason I was acting this way is because of this thing, which is because of this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing.
Yeah.
And the person who was kind of guiding me through that wasn't saying like, oh, maybe it started here. They were just kind of posing the questions to let me come to the conclusions and have them realizations. And I remember saying to her like, it's kind of crazy that sometimes I'll be struggling or have a realization or something, and I'll hear your voice, and then she kind of related to like an inner therapist, like you know, she kind of gave me the tool set to get to where I needed to be, and then I built that bridge to get to the other side. So
Mm.
yeah, uh, a lot of respect therapy, and I think it's really helpful. And I encourage anyone to do it, no matter what you're going through.
Yeah, I also obviously would too. um, okay, what about your bad experiences? They're important too.
Yeah, I've never had terrible experiences. I've never had somebody who made me feel like rubbish or whatever. I think it's you go to therapy, and I think there's a fine line between feeling heard and how can I put it? I guess the ones I didn't enjoy so much didn't give me them tools. They kind of just said like, yeah, yeah. Oh, that sounds horrible. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously that's why I'm here. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
uh,
it wasn't a meaningful conversation,
yeah,
is one
it
way.
felt like there was somebody listening, not hearing for the
Mm.
most part. And I've had that a couple of times. Um, I think the worst one was when I was living in London, and she was a lovely lady, but she couldn't understand my Yorkshire accent, so I was having to repeat myself over and over, and she was like, "What?" And I was like, "All right, it doesn't matter. Let's move on." So yeah, I've never had any terrible ones, but it's I think when you find a good one, yeah, it's really good.
Oh, sounds like you've been on quite a journey with your mental health to where you are now.
Yeah, uh, I think for the first time in 10 years, I feel like I am, I guess, better. Like I said, like the glass is always shattered and it's always gonna have like the crack marks in it. But I guess for a long time I was obsessing over getting rid of the cracks in the glass and going back to that person who I was before I, struggled with any of these things. And I think now I'm comfortable to look at them and have them there with me and accept that they are there and I can move forward from it. I think that was a big turning point.
It's kind of like the, is it ikigai? Do you know that phrase? The
The Japanese
Japanese
gold,
gold
yeah,
thing. Yeah, when it's shattered, they put it back together with gold, so it's still beautiful.
yeah. It's exactly like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you'll never go back to the person you once were because that person has left and you might become better than that person, you might become worse, but I feel like, in life you're always moving forward, and if you're trying to go back to where you were 10 years ago, then you're wasting time, you know. That's a long time. Um, and I think having, I guess, one kind of other beauty of kind of going through struggles is like it gives you a chance to have self-reflection. And I think for a long time, like I wasn't, no one's like a perfect person, but I was never a perfect person, and I had my own faults. And being able to look at myself under that microscope and realize who I was, um, and give myself the opportunity to work on myself, I feel like I'm at a much better place than I even was last year or 2 years ago.
Mm.
Um, and that's not to say that I don't struggle anymore. I do, but I think you get to a point where you know that you can fight your battles, and I think that's kind of like a sign of healing.
Yeah, it's the self-belief, isn't it? Knowing that no matter what happens, you'll work through it and you've got support through it and you know yourself enough and all of these things. How do you work on yourself now?
I think I learned the hard way, to be honest.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, a lot of arguments, a lot of falling out with people, a lot of kind of constantly like running and hitting a wall and being like, why do these things keep on coming up in my life? Why do I keep on hitting this wall? Why do I keep on, being taken advantage of? Um, and then eventually you can only run into a wall so many times before you learn your lesson from it. Um, and I think I've just done that so much over the past 10 years. And, like I was living in London and I really thought I was in like a good place and I really wasn't. But my idea of a good place was going out and constantly dating and constantly meeting people and you realize after doing things like that that like you're not actually learning. You are just using other things as coping mechanisms to get yourself through.
It's really good
Um,
awareness.
yeah, I do think like anybody who is creative or anything, or anybody who's just had any struggles with anything, I think you just do develop like a really good self awareness, and if you are willing to want to make the change, then you can make the change, and yeah, you can learn a lot about yourself and you can get through stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the relationship stuff is quite common, isn't it, at the moment, especially with online dating? Everything's disposable, everyone's disposable. Obviously, that's not a fact, but it's the world we're building around us at the moment. And people are not valuing connection so much and real connection and getting to know each other. And yeah, even linking in the creativity, you connect with yourself through creativity a lot and through. Um, Having an emotional outlet in whatever form that is. And there is a level of self exploration in all of that.
Yeah, I think that we're in a world where we're constantly being told that there's an answer for things. Like if you go on social media, you open up Instagram and it's like, are you feeling this way? Try this. Are you feeling depressed? Oh, you need to do this. This is the answer. This is the answer. This is everything. And it's
Quick
with
fix.
everything. Like everything's got a quick fix. Dating, life, like music. Constantly we are being pushed adverts like, oh, are you only getting this amount of listeners? And you need to be paying money to do this.
Mm.
And nothing works like that. Like, I think everything in life which is worth doing is a marathon and not a sprint.
I agree. Sometimes people approach therapy like this as well. They expect in one or two sessions that everything's going to be sorted. They're going to be able to work on themselves and that'll be it for the rest of their life. But there's a whole process to it, isn't it? Just like with everything. And it does take hard work. And you know more than anyone, 10 years of some of the struggles you've mentioned there. I imagine that's took like real grit to really work through. And it's hard, isn't it? Looking at yourself with a magnifying glass. Like, it's not nice, it's not pretty, but it's necessary to be a better person. And that's ongoing always, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess as a artist or musician, it does kind of make your life a bit easier. Like, Safe Bet, the song what's just come out. Um, that's my verse is it's about a relationship which wasn't very long but was like very toxic. And I didn't realize what it was doing to me uh, until it ended. And it took a lot for me to actually end it myself, but it's them struggles that make things easy to write about stuff. And I think there's value in going through things and analysing and getting them war scars because at least you can look back and, see where you've come from.
Mm. Is that what you see in the music too when you're writing these songs? It's kind of a little bits of your life playing out in the songs, isn't there?
Yeah,
By the sounds of it.
yeah, definitely. Um, you can't write about something which isn't true. Or you could. I could write about being like in Compton, like, you know, in the 90s, hanging out with Tupac, but, like, it never happened. And I think the more vulnerable you are with like any form of art and the more you put yourself into it, the more rewarding it is for you and the listener or the viewer. Um,
They're also connecting with it as well, with
yeah.
their own experiences with you. It's a whole storytelling.
And it's genuine as well. Like, if someone's telling you a story and you know it's not true, you can sniff it a mile away. I think if people really can connect to you and it just makes a whole load of difference. And that's why, like, you do with music, but I think as long as you're naturally like just telling your story throughout the whole track, then yeah, it's being genuine just plays out so much.
Do you find yourself learning about yourself through some of the music that you're doing? Yeah, even what you've just spoke about with like the relationship struggles that you had, your mental health, other things that are coming there, your support network. Are you learning about yourself in all of this as well?
I think the songs themselves highlight things which I already know, and I think the actual music business side of it is where I'm learning about myself more. Um, because this industry is absolutely cutthroat. We we're not a big band. We play gigs fairly regularly, and we have like decent crowds. But currently, we're not a big band, and
Yeah.
we'd try. Maybe one day would love to, but we put absolutely out everything of ourselves into the music. Like me and Lewis, we live together. We talk about music. As soon as we get home, he'll sit in the living room and we'll talk about like the next song or where this could go, where that could go, or whatever. And then we have not missed a week of practice in nearly 2 years, and we practice 4 hours every Tuesday. That's a lot of hours. We just put our whole heart and soul into it, and it becomes to the point where everybody in the band feels like they're working two jobs, and we all want to do one job, but it currently doesn't pay off for any of us. So you kind of have to turn up and do the rest of the stuff. Um, and you learn that like no matter how many knockdowns you get, because you get knocked down a lot, or you get bad shows, and I've been physically assaulted on stage. I've been groped on stage, and like you get so much annoyance. I've been threatened to be stabbed once,
Oh.
and it's you've got to have a certain amount of tenacity just to keep on going and keep on being like, you guys have done this, you guys have said that. Well, that fuels me to keep on going.
How do you cope mentally with those knockbacks and like these things happening? And when you pouring all yourself into it, there's a level of your identity in that, isn't there?
Yeah, it's really hard. That's definitely the hardest bit of music. Like these people, the people who run music, the people who give opportunities for bands to play with bigger bands and get a bigger audience, or to play on radio networks, or to get paid from music. They are people who they don't care about music. They care about money and numbers. And if you don't have the numbers, why would they invest their money into you? Like for a business decision, it makes sense, but it's kind of not how the world should be. But I mean, that's the
Yeah.
game we play.
It's
So
that quick fix again, though, isn't it? Because true, like loyal fans, it's not an area I know a massive amount about, but I know marketing, and yeah, it's important that people connect with you, isn't it, and your music, and with themselves through your music, and yeah, that's like long game, isn't it? But in these stats and this cutthroat mentality and some of the industry stuff. And yeah, it's that quick fix, isn't it? Looking at the numbers, quick sales, and then yeah, within a month they're forgotten about. But actually, it's important to put yourself out there and not just focus on like
yeah, and
those
it's
things.
really hard. Like it's not just me in the band who gets like bummed out about it. Like, well, we just played a festival. We played a headline slot to a crowd of people who didn't know who we were. The whole point of the festival is like you don't know who's playing until that night, sort of thing. So no one, there's very few people who knew who we were, and you get up on stage and everyone's kind of looking at you like there's all these guys like who are these weirdos? And then you win them round, and then you have these like amazing moments where people are coming up to you after the show and wanting to take pictures with you, and you have these like little glimpses into like people like liking your music and connecting with you, and it's a really nice feeling. And these big producers or like these big money people, like they don't see any of that. They don't see the connection you make with your fans, and the impact you can make, because you've only got 1,000 streams on one song,
Mm.
um, so no one really cares. But I mean, like our ethos is just to keep on making noise until people are forced to listen to us, and we'll always keep on going and keep on moving forward, because at the end of the day, like I'm a tattooer who doesn't have much business. We got Lewis who works in he works for like a rental company. We've got Dan who's a window cleaner, and the one thing that brings us all together is like we love music, we love doing what we do, and this is what we want to do. We want to
Mm.
keep it going, and I don't think any of us expect to get rich, but just to be able to at least do this for a little bit and make like a way so we can live fairly normally through music is like a dream. So we don't really have any other choice at this point.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of it as well, isn't it? Music does bring everyone together. You're experiencing that in your band, but we could do this on a bigger scale, like worldwide, every language, every genre, every age, every emotion, every like everything it hits. And it is bringing people together, isn't it? It's connection, and you're experiencing that in your version.
100%, like communities, subcultures. You look back through
Yeah.
like just England alone, and like you have the Teddy Boys, what turn into like the punks, and then there's got like ska in there, and then all these communities and things that have formed and brought people together and just built up. Like it's got like a physical repercussions in the world because you have places like Camden in London, which has become a massive spot, which has opened up all these opportunities for small businesses and big businesses, and a place where people can be comfortable. And yeah, like I think music has this unique thing to kind of, it can just really just like crack through the noise, I guess. It can it can send a message, it can bring people together, it can be anything you want it to be, but yeah, it's great, and it's really cool to be part of that and have people say like, yeah, I'm a fan, I listen to music all the time, and you guys help me get through this and that, and it's always a really nice feeling.
Yeah, that's really precious, actually. I can't imagine how that feels to be part of something like on such a big scale like that and like the universal needs that we all have.
Yeah, it's mad, and it's a crazy journey. I mean, even to get from like being a tiny band to a small band is just like crazy, and we have so many nice memories. And like the nice thing about all this is, if we don't, live our dream of being able to like make a life out of music, then at least we can look back and we can remember the time like seven of us crammed into a small car to get to Hull, all the time we've played festivals or we played to a sold out show and stuff like that. And like it's a big gamble for all of us because you put so much of yourself, like financially, physically,
Mentally.
mentally into it. But if you don't roll a six, you might roll a three, and the three is not so bad.
Mm, very true. Could say that with everything though, couldn't you? Everything's a gamble, and everything's risk taking. If you just stay in the same path and stay in your comfort zone, then there's going to be a point where you're unfulfilled in that. And people push against change. A bit of a sidestep here, but I see this a lot as well in therapy sessions. People will literally fight against change so much and be in the wrong job, be in the wrong relationship, be in the wrong place, in the wrong country, like so many different things, and just fight against it because it's scary. But what's the alternative? Like everything's hard, right? So you just pick your hard.
Yeah, I mean it's comfort in it. Like we're humans, we find comfort in familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I meet a lot of people who feel like they have this hole missing in their life and I don't really know what it is. Um, I think I'm lucky because I've always been in the field. Like I've always got something to fill that need. But I think when it doesn't come natural for people, like people do tend to feel a bit lost and do tend to recluse back into that comfortable space.
Mm.
Um, and like I always encourage people like to like take up drawing and stuff like that, or a hobby of some sort, because I just think you can find so much through hobbies. You can find communities, you can find bits like about yourself. I think yeah, I think that's like a really powerful tool which people kind of like sneer at and be like, oh, well, why would I take up knitting? And it's like, well, why not? You're not
Yeah.
doing anything else with your time, and you're miserable. So there's your
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot in this. I'm going to go a bit psychology geek now. It's good for trauma a lot of the time because what creativity does is like two things with regard to that. And I'm sure this is probably what you've got in some ways from your own struggles in the creativity that you do. So it puts it, whatever you're going through in emotion in third person. So it's easier to work with and process. And I use some of these techniques in sessions as well because it's less scary and you can express yourself without feeling so raw and vulnerable until you can then own it and bring it back in. So there's a lot you can get from it. And ultimately, if we think about like inner child work, it's about doing the stuff that you did as a child before all the conditioning, before the suffering and endurance of life, because we all have it. And yeah, obviously not minimizing what people go through, but we do have to work through that. And when you can reconnect with those like pure versions of yourself and any type of play, any type of creativity. Music is a version of this, but there's also the frequencies of music that help us emotionally as well. Like there's a lot that you can get from it when you scratch the surface, but people usually think, oh, well, I'm not an artist, so I can't do it, or I don't know how to make anything, so I can't do it. But you can do it in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think people get hung up on what art is. I mean, this is going to sound really pretentious, but I mean, to me, art is just expression. And, you know, if you are trying to draw a mug and it looks different to the way somebody else draws a mug, that's still kind of like your perception. That's the way you are seeing the world, and it might not be physically perfectly accurate, but it's still coming, like, them neurons are still firing and it's still coming from your body and you're still producing this thing. And yeah, I think people just get too hung up on the outcome of art a lot of the time. I mean, one thing what I do sometimes is, like, if I'm ever drawing and stuff, I'll kind of see where the drawing will take me or the painting will take me or whatever. And I don't think I've ever produced anything out of them where I've got like, oh, this is a great piece of art, this is a Basquiat, this is a Monet, whatever. But there's like this, it's almost like you're getting like whatever's inside of yourself out onto a piece of paper.
I like that.
And yeah, I went to art university and I was always told to experiment, and if I'm feeling, you know, this sort of way, then express it through this. And I guess you already know that if you're an art student or if you're an illustrator or whatever, because you've probably already explored them things. Whereas like the other half of like the world who don't paint and don't draw or don't whatever to express themselves, they're the ones who kind of need it more than us because they don't have that release. They don't have that way to get it out. And yeah, art doesn't always have to be pretty. Music doesn't always have to be pretty. It can be anything you want it to be. It's cool.
Yeah, not always external as well. Obviously, these versions that you're talking about are like actual pieces or like creativity versions, but can be inward as well. There's visualizations, isn't there? We all have an imagination and perception and different things we can explore in our mind. It's not always about external factors.
Oh yeah, definitely. Visualization, 100%, man. Like one like big turning point for me, and this is like really corny, but I want to ask you if you've seen something. I know you're gonna say no. You might say yes. Actually, have you seen Dragon Ball Z?
No.
No. All right. So it's an anime. It's a really famous anime, and it's about like big hulking muscly men who fight big hulky muscly aliens, and it sounds really homoerotic now I'm saying it out loud, but like it was like really popular like when I was growing up and stuff like that. And it always boils down to the good guy's about to lose, and then he'll fight back, and then his hair will start glowing and his muscles start popping, and then he'll fight back. And like there's this like turning point with me when I was like really really anxious. And I remember I was at uni and I was about to get a shower, and just like I pictured my anxiety just as like one of these aliens or whatever. And I pictured myself as like this thing, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna fight back. Like this is my moment. I'm gonna turn this fight around. And yeah, like visualization, it's crazy what your mind can do. And I think one thing to always bear in mind as well is like you feel like this because of your mind. So like you can feel, you know, a different way because of your mind. You know, it's a learned behavior, so you can learn something else.
Yeah, it's very true. Really special thing that you shared there. Your mind kind of set you free by the sounds of it in that. And I think that's important to remember, isn't it? Our mind can be a really dark place, or it can really set us free. And it does take hard work. And I'm sure you didn't just one day wake up and be like, I'm going to do this and this is going to work forever. And I'm sure there's been lots of other things in there. But when you work at it and consistent with consistency and yeah, have the awareness and really try your best, then you can like push through a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I
Your
think
mindset's everything.
100%. Like I'm a firm believer of like anything you want in life to an extent you can kind of achieve it. It just takes work, and I think
Mm.
that's just another one of them things.
Hmm. Yeah. If you could think of then any fans that are listening that are struggling, obviously the people that will connect with your music are probably going through some things, been through some things, reflected on their own stuff. Yeah, what do you think you would like them to learn from your music that might help?
I think whatever you take from our music is, you know, if it helps you, then great. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. But I guess pretty much like I don't want to speak on other people's experiences, but pretty much all of our band is a representation of what happens when you fight your own demons and you keep on moving forward. Um, and we might not be successful, but at least we're doing something we love and we're happy with. So yeah, keep going.
Mm, nice. Stay true to yourself. What's next for Sleuth Gang?
Well, today's release day of our song, so yeah, we've got a lot of songs kind of ready to go. We'll be releasing over the next few months, but yeah, Safe Bet out now everywhere, YouTube, Spotify. Song about toxic relationships. It's also really catchy. Like I guarantee you'll get it stuck in your head. And yeah, we're really
Already
proud
have.
of this one. Yeah.
Any sneak previews?
No.
Airtight, you'll have to tune in.
Yeah.
Where can
Well,
people catch your music?
Sleuth Gang on Spotify, Sleuth Gang on YouTube, uh, Sleuth underscore gang on Instagram, and I think it's Sleuth Gang Music on Facebook. We'll just search Sleuth Gang, you'll find us.
We'll tag it in the post.